So it all started with I was looking for a tummy tuck after I'd lost quite a bit of weight, so I'd had neighbouring of skin. So I'd done some research online. The factors were the UK was too expensive, so that's why I looked outside the UK. I looked for a company that would had the whole package essentially. So it was a case of let's find one who can do not only do the surgery but they can look after me afterwards, they can sort my flights, and it's just a case of let's just pay this lump sum and go. And we went through like expectations of what was needed. So we put in for a tummy, I think it was tummy tuck and liposuction. So I was picked up from the airport from a driver. Then we were taken to an apartment. I was just kind of left there and said we'd pick you up tomorrow morning. I was taken through to a receptionist the next morning, and the driver spoke to the receptionist, so there was no English communication at that point. Then we were taken through, had my bloods done, and I was left in a room. Then they come back and the consultant was there and they had a translator. So he was obviously speaking quite a lot, and you know when someone's saying like 5 or 6 sentences to you, then the translator saying 1 sentence back, I'm thinking that can't be full translation. But so it was a bit nerve-wracking at that point. Then they just kind of just took me through. Once I'd asked a few questions. I'd asked like what expectations I was going to have post-surgery in regards to pain. I think he laughed at that point. That was the bit I did get in translation. So yeah, then he took me through to the surgery. No, like there's a pre-surgery part, and he just kind of marked me up with a pen, no words. Then I was just taken in. It was very formal and very not very. I work for hospital sites in the NHS, and you know that straight away doctors walk in and they get familiar with the patient, and it puts them at ease straight away. There was none of that, so I didn't have that experience going in. So that made me quite apprehensive, but I put a lot of trust in them, going off everything that I'd researched. I had the surgery on, I think it was Good Friday, and then because it landed over Easter weekend, and they in Prague, it was like a holiday there, so they all went away for the weekend. And I remember texting the number that I'd given, saying, look, I need some painkillers, I'm really not okay. Then they texted me back saying, oh, there's a pharmacy downstairs. At this point I couldn't stand up, I was like using a mop to try and get out of bed, and I was just like, and it took me like 2.5 hours to walk downstairs to this pharmacy to find out it was closed because it was Easter Sunday, because I'd had the surgery Friday, woke up on a Saturday, then I'd lasted all the way through the Saturday night, and it was a Sunday morning, it was Easter Sunday, and I went downstairs and everywhere was shut, and I just sat outside this pharmacy like crying my eyes out. I was thinking this isn't normal. Then I was like, when he back, he was like, he's emailed me back saying, texted me back saying, I'm on holiday in the mountains somewhere, and I was just like, oh right, okay, well, how can I get some help? Then I think he replied to me like on the Tuesday or the Wednesday saying, do you still need some pain meds? It wasn't what I expected. I remember reading up and it said if you have a tummy tuck, you should be able to up and walk within 12 hours. And I read that in quite a few forums, and it was about 2 days later and I still couldn't get up. They gave me like 3 or 4 paracetamol, and I just thought that's not enough for me for the level of pain I'm in. That's not enough. According to all the forums I've read, I should be up and walking and be able to dress myself. This is the expectations I had, whereas their expectations are it's okay, like he's helping her up. It felt like we need the bed. We'll just get her up and ready and we'll get her back to the apartment, and we need the bed. And the whole time in my head I thought, well, it's alright because I've paid for a week's aftercare, so if it means I'm not in this bed, I'll be looked after in a different bed in the apartment. I didn't live up to the expectations I had up in my head when you pay for aftercare, and you think, oh, it's okay because they've sold it as it's basically a clinical room in an apartment away from the hospital where we will look after you, and it's not. It felt like they just booked some Airbnb where they just left me in a room and we'll pick you up in a week for the airport. He carried me. I remember he had his arm under my armpit and he just like walked me to the check-in desk. Then he was just like, right, bye then. And I was like, you can see that I physically can't stand, but that's your job done now. You've done your week. You've passed me over to the check-in desk. And I just thought to myself, I'd try to book my friend on a flight to come over to fly home with me, but there was only 2 flights from Newcastle and they just missed it. And I just thought, right, you just need to get home, just force yourself to get home. And I was just like, just get me on this plane, just get me on this plane. And I was once we took off, I just burst into tears. I thought, right, just get me home, that's all I need, just get me home. From the very first surgery in the UK when I come back, and it was like the fixed job essentially. We had 6 reconstructive surgeries. It was like 2 years in and out of hospital. But 6 surgeries, 3 different job roles changed. I split up my husband at the time. It had a massive impact. I had to relearn to walk. Like all my flesh, so the doctors had looked. I knew there was black patches on my stomach, and the doctors had looked, and it was like it had all gone black, so it just died. So they asked my husband at the time. They were saying, "We need you to give us consent." Debridement. I couldn't think of the word before. We need to give you to give us consent to do debridement, but we're going to take away 70% of our stomach. It was either they were going to try and go in and just lift the skin and like scrape it all out there and put it, but they're like, our skin's too far gone now. We need to go and do it. But I'd vomited all the dead skin up, and the smell still stays with me now. The smell of dead flesh is awful. They said we need to take it to surgery, and it was the case that I think I was in 12 minutes before they had me in surgery, and they just took me straight up to surgery. They were amazing at the hospital I went to, at Wandsworth Hospital. Really, really good. And then they tried to do something like 20 centimetres where they cut it off. Then they come back a few hours later and ask my husband, look, we need to go back in further, it's still growing. We're going to do a second lot of surgery. And it's basically, they were going to do another 10 centimetres, then 2 centimetres for like safety nets, so it wouldn't stop growing. So it ended up where it was like 32 centimetre patch of skin that they cut off. And yeah, so I was in intensive care for about a week, and they had me in an induced coma, just to let my body recover. The greatest impact after surgery, I wasn't a very nice person to live with. So I was very angry because I was in a lot of pain. I was just an angry person. So why did this happen to me? Like, of all people, why did it happen to me? Felt unfair. Felt very unfair. So yeah, went to therapy, dealt with all that, still dealing with all that. But I can see the change now that the case is over. I don't hold a lot of anger onto it now. It's a lot to process. Probably more mentally than physically, because the physically we could deal with. So we had all the physio and the reconstructive surgery and all the pain meds you could deal with the physical side. But a lot of the mental side, that wasn't looked after in A&E or on a ward. Ninya was there for me all the time via email, text, calls, my irrational calls at like 11 o'clock at night, and like just bringing me back down. It was always really personal. I never felt like something was too much. I never felt like any questions were too silly or too like they weren't good enough to go and ask, if that makes sense. I'm asking silly questions. No, she would answer everything professionally and straight back to me. Never felt like I was just another client number on a list on a busy day. It was very much there was a care there was a level of care, and they were concerned. She was definitely concerned about my welfare. So when we done the psychological check, she came back and she looked after me. 7 years has been a roller coaster of emotions, and it's gone through anger and upset, and it's nice to see it come back around to we've got a happier ending. Obviously we're still going through the trauma, but she's guided me through all that, and I've been really, really grateful for that. I still, even if I had questions now, I still think I could go and ask her, and I don't think she would hesitate. Brilliant care all round. I know I say I done my research, but do a lot more research. Try and find patients who have been there before, so that you can go through their experiences. Because I feel even the written reviews that they have on their website, they will select those. They will be hand selected. So if you can find forums about the surgeon themselves or about the hospital themselves, definitely do that. Don't go alone. I went alone, so that is that was a big no-no for me. You need support. As much, I'm quite a strong, independent person, but you definitely need support, physical more than mental. So if something does go wrong and you're too weak and you need someone to help you physically move, I would definitely say have someone there with you. But 100% research. Don't just go off the face value of what the company's saying. They're always going to put their best interest first.